Right. So, as we discussed, that income categories we can. So as per income, we can categorize into four. That means that there are four sources. Right? Employment. Business. Investment. Right? So we are discussing this thing. Right? Last week we recognized what is investment income. Right? Component of the investment income. And outline business income. In the but the investment income, they the access, what type of things that need to be included. But remember, so first thing is that it should be part of investment. Otherwise, we cannot recognize as that. Right? As you asked that, so if we are selling a building, land or building, whether it is coming under the investment income or business income. Right? So under the investment income also, the business income also says that capital assets used in the business. If there is gain or realization gain on the capital assets used in the business should be part of the business income. So what is the definition for capital assets? Land or building, blah blah blah. Right? So if it is coming under the investment income, so it should be we need to work out here. So the valuation and the cost component of the asset is different when we compare the business and the investment. Right? Right. So under the investment income, that need to be included, that this dividend, interest, royalty, rent. Basically, these are very the common thing: interest, dividend, rent, and royalty, payment for natural resources, discount. Right, that type of things are that need to be included when we work out considering the investment income. Again, I am saying that in my companies, I am doing share trading. Share trading. So you can say the trading. That means buying and selling. So then it is my business. Is there any what that type of strategic investment companies? Right? So share brokering companies. So they are income, that is part of their business. Right? Clear? Right. So then we discuss things that need to be included. And the definition for that component is part of the component of that investment income. Here dividend says the division of profit of the company in the form of in the distribution or at a liquidation or capital construction, share buyback. If there is a division of profit, that is coming under the interpretation for dividend. That's covered under the interpretation for dividend, including bonus shares. Right? Bonus shares. So company is issuing bonus shares means the company is not paying any cash. They are increasing their share capital and they capitalize their resource. So but it is treated as dividend. So then it's subject to tax. It is subject to actually withholding tax. Right, rent. Important here is rent. Right to use property. Right to use property. Any kind. could be building, land, machinery, whatever. Right? Motor vehicle. So if we are giving the right to use of that asset, so it is coming under the category of investment income. But say, you know that, say, company doing transportation. They can give a vehicle to another company. They are getting, it could be coming under the rent income or it could be coming under the business. Based on the terms of the agreement. If you are giving that as to right to use of that asset to that particular person, then it could be coming under the rent income. Right? Otherwise, it could be coming under the hiring income. Right? Clear? I mean the same. If we go to the road and if you we want to go somewhere, so we go to the taxi. And that fellow is doing what is that is their business. He is also hiring a vehicle. Right? We temporarily get that services. But same vehicle we can take on a rent basis for a particular period. Right? If the person is doing as a business, they are part of business income. Getting hiring vehicle. Right? Right. Here we are removing that natural resources. That is why it's separately recognized. Royalty. So payment including a payment of a premium or likely amount derived as a consideration for the use of or right to use a copyright of literature, artistic or scientific work, including cinematographic films, software, video, or audio recording, whether the work is in electronic format or otherwise. So in this category, royalty means it's part the software also part of that category. Right of asset, but it's coming under the royalty. Right, payment for the royalty. But this is actually the what is this? A license version, license software. But if you are purchasing a software, so it's outright purchase. So that the developer doesn't have any ownership funds or the purchase that. And the most of software is what they are giving license. For a particular period we can use. Thereafter, we have to pay for again for particular period. That's how generally software is. Otherwise, you know that in the computer, there are some sort of software that is going to the operating system that we have purchased with the machine. But any other thing, just like say ERP, say what is this QuickBook or whatever thing. So they are given for a particular period. Thereafter that license license is expired, we cannot use that. So that is coming because this is very important. The all are very important, but this concept you can read again. We are finding that the same thing when we are discussing the taxation of an unresident person. In a big way we are discussing whether it is coming what the tax treatment in case of the royalty and how we should recognize likewise, right? Secret formula, model plan, that type of thing. Natural resources we discuss, and the capital assets. Gain from the realization of investment assets. So it says investment assets means a capital assets. Investment assets means capital assets. Held as part of an investment. If it is held as part of an business, it is coming to business. It should be held as part of an investment. Right? Excluding the principal place of residence of an individual, provided it has been owned by the individual continuously for the 3 years before the disposal, for a period of 3 years. That is only applicable for individual. Another thing is what is residence. Right? Principal place of residence. And if it is the case, if we are having more than 3 ownership and out of that 3 ownership, we are live there for 2 years. So then it is excluded from the definition of capital asset. Otherwise, it is part of capital. Right? So land or building, membership interest, security or other financial assets, and option rights of or other interest in an assets. Right? Land and building, they have given definitions. So then the computation part, how to work out. So again from the realization of investments as a popular topic is what is that capital gain. We call capital gain. Consideration received, cost, gain or loss. So it says consideration received, it shall not less than the asset value. Right? So it says indicative of the market value, indicative market value. So then cost is says what is cost? Purchase cost and other incidental cost that can be done. Right? So then tax exempted investment income and made on realization of shares, ordered shares, that is exempt. Right? So two reasons for this change. So you know that in a country we have economic policy and we have tax policy. The economic policy and tax policy should be go together. Right? Say we want to expand our capital investment. So therefore we should consider that expansion of that or the development of the share market. That would say one in a way they say okay, whatever again you getting from the share market investment, that is a tax exempt. So then encouraging that activity because share market is not functioning previously good. Now some extent is functioning. Other thing is share transactions are subject to share transaction levy. There are other taxes in Sri Lanka that call share transaction levy. It is applicable for shares dealing in a listed stock chain. Right? In the buyer and seller both are paying on the sales or the purchaser, that share transaction levy. Based on the tax base for the share transaction levy is the consideration. Purchase consideration, buyer paying on that basis, seller also paying on the sales consideration. So therefore it's already taxed. The tax is huge. Not on the profit. It's on the sales or the purchase share transaction. So that is the other reason. This has been exempted from tax. Going income. Right? So interest received by charitable institution. Says charitable institution where it is provided that satisfaction of commercial gender that such interest is applied solely for the purpose of providing care to children, the elderly or disabled in a home maintained by such charitable institutions. So that is interest income to a charitable institution. Any person outside Sri Lanka on any loan granted to any person in Sri Lanka or to the government of Sri Lanka by such person. That is, the non-resident person is providing loan to Sri Lanka. That interest is exempt. Good example is interest payment to IMF. Right? You can remember. Otherwise, we have to tax IMF also. If this exemption is no more there. Right? This is there. Any person of money laying to his credit in foreign currency in any foreign currency account. Right? Any person. So having say just like say RFC and NRFC account. RFC stand for resident foreign currency. NRFC non-resident foreign currency. The resident person can open a foreign currency account. Some, not all of us. Right? They should have some sort of foreign earnings through that. They have earning in foreign currency. So they can open foreign currency account. That is called resident foreign currency. RFC. The non-resident, Sri Lanka citizen who are non-resident outside Sri Lanka, they can open an account in Sri Lanka bank that calls as RFC. So that interest income is exempt. That is also for what? Indian foreign currency in Sri Lanka. encourage them, they are sending that foreign currency to Sri Lanka. Right? Rupee account, that is not tax. Only accounts maintained in the bank in foreign currency. Designated foreign currency. Any welfare society. So lottery winning up to 500,000. Taxation. So dividend paid to a member to the extent that such dividend payment is attributable to or derived from another dividend received by that resident company or another resident company. So whenever in the we have to. Right? Last. So this is we call pass-through dividend. So if the resident company distribute dividend, the recipient gets as dividend. So tax liability is with the recipient. He is liable for tax. Right? But when the distributing company make dividends, next part we discuss. We are discussing. The distributing company has to deduct tax at source. We call source-based tax. When they are making a payment, we have to deduct tax. So that's called withholding tax. We discuss withholding tax. Right? So that who has to deduct in case of the dividend? Distributing company has to deduct tax. But if that dividend is from the dividend income what that particular company receives. That's what it says. Dividend paid to a member, dividend paid to shareholders. To the extent that such dividend payment is attributable to or derived from another dividend received or that resident company or another resident company. And that dividend is received to that particular company from another company, or from another resident company. In such case, that dividend income is tax exempt to who? To the This is happening in where? What type of dividend they are talking? So say there is a company called a this company can invest in other company. Right, say company B. China. Right? So now is shareholders of this company. Then this company distribute dividends. They are paying dividend. Right? So now when they are making dividend, they would have paid tax or whatever. We don't know. So when they can distribute dividend to company A. So discuss this part. What we discuss here is this part. When this company distribute dividend, they can also distribute dividend to their his shareholder, this company shareholder. Right? If that dividend is attributable to the dividend received by A from B, they can distribute that dividend to this. Right? I'm going to say they are getting that income. It is there in their income statement. When they work out their profit after tax, that income goes till there. That income they can utilize to distribute dividend. Right? So if this shareholder is getting that income, this tax exempt to the shareholders. So අපි දුන්න තාම මෙයා තියන්නේ. එයා මෙයාට කියනවා මෙයා මෙයාට. So the main company has exempt. A dividend is not exempt. No, what is okay? Tax exempt. Benefit nothing. Reason is that because this is also double taxation. When this company is making distribution, from which profit they are distributing dividend? Dividend distribute करा, मैं काम करता हूँ, क्या dividend distribute कर, क्या dividend distribute कर, मोड़ा profit. होते हैं ना dividend लिखता है ना account सोल, account कहाँ लिखा, हाँ? Profit after tax, already paid from tax on that income. एक का दावा इलाके क्या है? So they are paying tax at 30%. Profit after tax they are utilizing for the distribution of dividend. That's already we have paid 30% tax. अब यहाँ पर distribute करना तो आए 15% tax का. Again, same income source, tax at 2 point. We call economic double taxation. Country का क्या तो लेकर आता है तो लेने right? So that's why is that giving that exemption to others. Meta in the tax no thing tax product कर. तब हमें CR पुना CR tax करा. इतो भी हत्ता है वो केवल एक केवल आए 5 लाख में एक tax करा. कारण हत्ता है और 5 लाख क्या किया? Clear? Amen. That is a part. So Hatai distributed. Hatai the theatre. Hatali tax given. Tax may income distributed. That's why that's there. To avoid that, I mean, if it is the case, people may not invest in companies. And so therefore we say, okay, that dividend is attributed to the dividend received by that company from another company or another resident company. So when they are distributing that dividend or use that dividend income to redistribute dividend or the repay the pay dividend, the ultimate recipient is taxation. They can claim the taxation. Right? Is there a point or that pay income capital dividend income, they don't come income? So so we have to maintain the proper record. That is the profit 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 after tax 150 dividend yeah, so you have dividend profit can do that with that. So what is the the source document for dividend? Program dividend warranty. Have you seen dividend warranty? Bana dividend warranty categoristic exempt out of profit warranty dividend distribute exempt liable warranty. I like that so that's the concept of the exemption what we discussed. It says now with that understanding, shall we read again? So it says dividend paid. That dividend paid means the company A is making the dividend payment to the shareholders. To the extent that such dividend payment is attributable. A dividend source attributable coming from the another dividend received by that company. Such case, that dividend is taxed. Right? Right. So then that is one thing. Other thing is if we are making any investment outside Sri Lanka and getting that dividend income, that's also if you are distributing, that is also exempt. That goes under the foreign source that is also exempt. Right? Foreign dividend, that is also exempt. Yes, okay. Right? We discussed under the 3 years and 14, so that is called foreign. One. Okay. Right. So up to that, I mean, we have already discussed in last week. Right? So, especially under the investment income, this withholding tax is coming to phase. Right? So in Sri Lanka, there are 3 ways to pay taxes. Okay, that's not we are discussing this, right? So payment of taxes, but I am covering here also because it is there as a direct link with dividend income. So there are 3 ways to pay discharge tax liability. First one we call by withholding. By withholding, we can make tax, our tax liability. Right? If you are earning more than 100,000 from your salary, from your employer is deducting tax. After that, tax one tax right? Then so by way of withholding, so I told you that it is not the person who pays that thing. His tax liability. It is not that his tax liability. It is recipient tax liability. Income owner's tax liability. It's deducted by the payer. So always that withholding is operated when there is a payment coming. Right? Yes, it could be coming under the employment income, it could be coming under the investment return. We call investment return. Right? So then that is the first way by withholding. Say bank is making interest payment to your accounts, bank is deducting tax. He is withholding tax. It is not his tax liability, it is interest owner's tax liability or the income owner tax liability, and he is deducting and he is paying to the Commissioner General's account. He has to pay. This is responsibility. Otherwise, he is subject to so many. I mean, there are not so many repercussions on that. Right? Therefore, that's the first way of paying tax. That is called by withholding. The withhold tax and pay to the Commissioner General's account. So then the withholding, we call the person who deducting tax is withholding agent. Tax agent. Agent he is acting on behalf of principal. Right? So the tax agent is work on behalf of the Commissioner General. He is a tax collector. He is collecting tax on behalf of the Commissioner General. Second thing is by installment. Installment means we can make our tax payment from our earned money. That is called by installment. Third one is by assessment. So assessment means it could be from the taxpayer side assessment as well as Commissioner General also can issue an assessment to collect tax. So when we are work out our tax liability, we are saying okay, our tax liability is say 1 million. Commissioner General can check that thing, our declaration and everything. There we can say no, your tax liability is not 1 million, it is 1.5 million. We can issue an assessment and collect the balance 500,000. So that is the way. Third way of pay discharging tax liability is called assessment based tax. Taxpayer has assessment as well as Commissioner General has assessment. Right? This is the second. So we'll say we'll discuss this. What is by withholding? So actually it's previously goes as withholding tax. It got changed, name got changed, advance income tax. So previously on the employment remuneration, it goes as payee. Right now it goes as APIT. Same thing, same way. Only name the name of the tax got changed. Name of the mechanism. It's a payment mechanism. It is not a separate tax. It is income tax. Mode of payment of income tax. That's what I mentioned the first day when I asked what are the type taxes Lanka pay, dividend tax, all those things. I told that they are not separate. Either one tax, that's one tax. So in case of the dividend, if you are making dividend payment, as I told you, company deducting tax, state income tax. Name is advance income tax. Right? Right. So when the employer is paying salary, he is deducting tax. That is income tax. Mode of payment is income tax. By way of withholding, it is withholding tax. Right? Name is advance payment in advance personal income tax. Personal income. So instead this withholding tax is there. It says in case of the non-taxable payment, it is name. It is just name withholding tax. So that is the oldest mechanism what in Sri Lanka has that pay. That is the first withholding tax system operated in Sri Lanka. Right? And ultimately, what happens when the payer make the payment? Is withholding tax or deducting tax that goes to the Commissioner General account. The concept or the mechanism is withholding tax. Right? Tax is held by the payer. Held with the payer. That size here is called withholding tax. Right? Right. So, withholding tax, advance payment, income tax, there are three types of payment. I mean, the categories they are recognized for the withholding tax. On employment income, on investment income, so that's what we are discussing on investment income or service fee. Right? Withholding tax is there. So, we'll discuss this thing as well. Advance personal income tax, section 83A, subsection H. 1. Deduction of APIT by employees mandatory. This is mandatory. Right? Effective from 1/1/2023. The obligation of an employer to deduct advance personal income tax shall not be reduced or exceeded, which when the employer has a right or is under an obligation to deduct and withhold any other amount from the payment or any other law, provided that an employer's income from employment shall not be reduced or subject to attachment. That means the employer's responsibility cannot be taken out. Say my salary is under 60,000. So then say I have to pay bank, right? So for that thing I have to pay 80,000. Then under 60 and 80 money is 80. So I can employed money 80 tax. So that is what it mentioned. No, that cannot be done. My gross earning is under 60. First thing is they have to deduct tax. Employees obligation and when law right? Right. So Commissioner General has published APIT table. Advance personal income tax table they have published. You have to apply that table. Once you apply the tax and work out the tax on monthly basis, the annual tax liability and the monthly tax what you are paying end of the year, same. There won't be any additional tax. Maximum housing in the plan table use karana. So your tax monthly tax liability and the aggregate monthly tax liability and the annual tax liability is same. Right? APIT table apply karna. Apply. Yeah. Now 308,000. It already very nice. It how much? Maximum 36% apply karna kya? Right. Orang ka pen balam. Department website. This is the platform revenue administration management control system. Platform. So make it download publication API So 25, 26 එක මේදී ඉන්නේ. අපි බලමු ඒක වාගත්තා කියන්නේ. එක්සැම් එකේදී මේදී 24, 25 වෙනකන් ඉච්චිට. So how to apply this thing? He says, what are the things that need to be considered? There are 7 tables. So table 1 goes for the regular profit. We call monthly regular profit. Right? It says here, in preparing this tax table, 100,000 per month as person risk has already been considered. That's what I mentioned. If you are earning more than 100,000, it's something. Otherwise, not. Because sorry, එකක් ගාව නම් ඔයාට tax එක පටන් ගන්න. Right? ඒ දේ තමයි මේක. So it says monthly regular profit from employment up to 100,000, no tax. More than 100,000, and it says exceeding 100,000 but not exceeding 141,667, you apply the 6% of the total and minus 600,000. 6,000. That is monthly tax. Right? So, एक और वर्कआउट कर लेना। अब याद रखना। So what I told you that say assuming that monthly gross earning is 120. So එයා කියන්නේ 120 ගණන් නම් කීයද ටැක්ස් කරන්න කියන්නේ? එයා ගන්න බෑ. 6% minus 6,000. කීයද නේද? $1,200. So 1,200. So then employer making monthly, they are asking 1,200 and they are paid to the commission general account. අපි මෙයාගේ tax එක ගත්තම අවුරුද්දටම අපි හිතමු 1 ලක්ෂ 20,000 තමයි monthly හම්බුනේ. මාස 12ම හම්බුණා Saturday. How much? 1.2 million 120 දෙකක් කියන්නේ 240යි 1440. So then මෙයාට tax එක අපි හදනවා. දැන් හදන්න බලන්න tax එක දැන් හදුවනේ උඩු. ඉන්දියාවේ tax එක. So we can deduct what is tax free allowance to relief tax relief එක අඩු ගන්න පුළුවන් 1.2 million. එයාගේ taxable income එක ඉන්නේ 240. 240,000. So මේක tax වෙන්නේ 6% over. Up to 500,000 tax at 6%. Here tax is. Okay, now 400. May I have annual tax liability? अभी monthly मास है क्या निकल रहा है 10 देखिएगा ये दो अमेरिका में कौन निकला तो 200 पे एक मंथ पे खाता का वैसे नहीं नंबर दिया चाहते आ रहे हैं right so once they apply the correct table and correct benefit the tax what the employer monthly deducting or the aggregate of that monthly deduction is equal to the annual tax liability. Right? Right. So likewise, it's they have the publish that table. And the table reason is that now the tax free allows or the tax free tax relief individual person tax relief has been introduced. Right? Right. So there are 7 tables. That table need to be applied. Taxation, the terminal benefits. So is as the previous one, no change. So it says terminal benefits means there are, two types we can categorize into the employment income two. One thing is regular income, other thing is termination income. At the termination of the employment or retirement, some benefits we are recognizing for tax purpose, that is coming in the terminal benefit. Right? So it says how to work out tax on that. The table 3 says once and for all payment. Under that, if we apply that table, that is equal to the real tax liability. The reason is that there are some concession under the employment income which given to the terminal benefit. Right? Say just like gratuity, compensation for loss of profits, EPF, ETF, that type of thing. So most of income are tax exempt. So other income, other part is taxed at concessional rate. That says up to 10 million, tax is 0. Next 10 million, tax is 6. Balance things tax as 12. Based on that, that table has been designed. Right? Employment income we discussed earlier. Employment income we කරන්නේ කොහොමද? කියන්නේ ආයි ඉතින් ගන්නව නේද? කවුරුත් කලින් ටැක්ස් ගන්නු? කොහොමද? කොහොමද ගන්නද? Excellent. Yang naik kan? No, Chandu lagi PL ke mana? Start kereta. AD exception. AD और final lagi. Taxi मांगेंगे वो घूमेंगे तो हम आता है। ये काम मकान से करने साल में कभी वास्ते नहीं। Iba manggil tu kan bandar tu naik kan bandar, no, yang kocil lele tu bandar tu ya. Right? So I mean that the syllabus has set up in that way. So if somebody is coming from AAT, the main syllabus is meet up very much AAT I don't know whether somebody is from AAT is there. The tax scope is just gan one natin janna or pass on ko model natin but that syllabus is there. So BL1 also, the BL level, business level, CA ke तीनों A level लगते हैं. CA के आधा तीन individual tax computation ऐसा नहीं करला, इधर strategic के करे जाना को जाने मैं overall तीनों दाम में तीन पार्ट. So actually, honestly, I'm doing employment income में मैं strategic के है मैं बना. Strategic level ले को बनाना है मैं एक मतलब मैं ड्यूटी का बताया मैं ले रहा हूँ बताया. Same thing. So once you complete this thing, you have again anyway need to do the strategic level tax, right? एक दिन आए मैं क्यों रहा हमने? क्या मांगा रहा है? Right? So it says there are 7 tables. Table 1 is for the monthly regular profit. Table 2 is for lump sum payment because it's just like bonus that are the in periodically we are getting. So because we cannot apply the monthly table for that. And table 3 is for the once and for all payment at the terminal and the retirement payment. Termination and retirement yeah, then I can. Total satu doang. Ikan kan Australia ni, ate Australia negatif. Termination, employment termination and retirement as a difference.
termination.
No, it's not like it. Termination can be happen from our side also and employee side. Mom hitting the hand. In there to out there. From the employee side, but can well, in the Kagana, my understanding. That is also termination. But that we have to give that comply with the terms and of the agreement and not thing. So that is also termination. And the employer can draw my resign. That's what I understand. That is also termination. So retirement is happening because of the law. After you read that 60 thereafter is automatically that is called as retirement. Which one? This is. Yeah. So termination. So at that point, so we have some. I mean, I say, Mama, as for the Sri Lanka law, somebody working for an employer more than 5 years, he is entitled to get that. What is gratuity? As for the gratuity law, that's not as for the tax law. It says gratuity law. Again, gratuity pay. So if you are getting some of the big amount once, if you apply the other table, the tax is high. Therefore, the table is set up in a way to cater that part. Reason is that, especially the target is to protect the employee side. If the employee side protect that. Right. At the retirement, say you are getting big money. Retirement is passe. I can put an employee in the breakdown when I can't job. He has to leave that after the rest of the period from that money what he is getting from that employee. EPF paying, EDF paying, right? This second doing a body. Thereafter, government has to look after that person. Okay, so if it is coming to the retirement of the terminal benefit, which is qualified for tax purpose, these things qualify for tax payment. Most of them are tax exempt. Just like approved fund, the EPF, you are getting from a approved fund, it is tax exempt. Our business income is discussed. Contribution to the approved fund is deductible. Otherwise, it's not deductible. The employee side again, income is excluded income. Monthly tax and EPF contribution. EDF contribution if it is approved. Right? So at the end of the period, he is getting the total amount. What is the total amount? 8% plus 12% plus interest. Investment income. Right? So what our income is 8% to 12% investment income. Huh? 8% කියන එක දන්නවනේ මගේ පැත්තෙන් 8ක් කපනවා එයාගේ පැත්තෙන් 12ක් කපනවා ඒක දානවා ෆන්ඩ් එකේ ෆන්ඩ් එක තමයි ඒකේ තව ඉන්කම් එකක් ඒක එකතු කරනවා ප්‍රින්සිපල් රේට් එක අඩුම ගන්න හම්බ වෙනවා දැන් මගේ ඉන්කම් එක මත එම්ප්ලොයි ඉන්කම් එකේ කියන past present future the past employment එකෙන් දැන් හම්බ වෙන එක ඒක ටැක්ස් එක හම්බ වෙනවා right මොකද මගේ ඉන්කම් එක 12% plus investment income. Yes, 8% is my saving. ඒක already I paid tax. ඒක tax වෙන්න ඕනේ. Because monthly මං ගත්තේ නැහැ. ඒතකොට retirement එකේදී හැම වෙනකොට tax වෙන්න ඕනේ. But if the fund is approved, the total amount is tax exempt. Total amount is tax exempt. EDF එකේ ගන්න පස්සේ EDF එකේ කියනවා 3% එක tax වෙනවා investment income එක tax වෙන්නේ නැහැ. 3% එක හරිනම් මගේ tax වෙනවා. ඒක tax කරන්න. හැබැයි investment income එක tax කරන්න එපා. 87 වල පස්සේ ආපු වෙන interest income එක tax වෙන්නේ නැහැ. Investment එක tax exempt. Tax exempt employee income. you have a same concept. 3% එක තමයි මට මොකද monthly ගෙවනකොට මගේ ආයෙත් tax උන්නේ නැහැ. හැබැයි retirement එකේදී මට ඒක tax වෙන්න ඕන. That's the second part. Third part is gratuity. Gratuity as per the law. But if there is no exemption, it is liable for tax. But in case of the death or injury, that is exempt. Management also gratuity එක company ඉන්න මිනිස්සුන්ට ඒක රෙමිනියේෂන් ගෙන්න. Right? ඒක නිසා ඒක tax free. Injury එකදී tax free. නැත්නම් ආර කියන ගොනාන්න නැහැ, ගහින් කඩ ඉඳන් ගොනාන්න ආගෙන තුවාලයක් කියලා එකද ගන්න ඉන්ජරි කියලා gratuity එකක් ඒකට tax කරනවා. No, it's not the case. So that's a license to protect the employee. Tax law can protect us. So gratuity එක as per the law, it's a so all the taxable terminal benefit, taxable term, the exempting angle is already taxable. The more or less what is that ETF 3% plus gratuity, plus compensation for loss of office. Compensation for loss of office already. If it is a uniform scheme, it should be considered as terminal benefit. It should be considered as terminal. Compensation for loss of office කියන්නේ අර කිව්වා. ඒකට එන ඉන්ඩිෆාක්ෂන්. එතන එන්න බලනවා ලංකාව එහෙම කිව්වට මේ එහෙම නවත්තන්න බෑ. employee කෙනා මට බිස්නස් එක කරගන්න බෑ. දැන් මේ දවස්වල ආර්ථික තත්ත්වයට එක අමාරුයි. ඒකත් අපි මේක වහනවා. එතන ඔයත් ඉතින් එන්න එපා. එහෙම කරන්න බෑ. That's another law. It says the employee is going to terminate the employee. Right? So he has to pay some compensation. One thing. That's called one thing. So if it is the approved fund, approved scheme, so that is also coming under the terminal benefit. Otherwise, it is not coming under the terminal benefit. Terminal benefit, there is a terminal benefit or EDF 3%, gratuity, compensation for loss of office. Up to 10 million, tax at 0%. The tax another exemption 10 million tax. Next 10 million tax at 6%. Reduced rate. If there is a balance, tax at 12%, whatever amount we are getting. That's all. So more exemption and reduced tax rate. That is the only reduced tax rate available to the employee. Right? Maximum tax rate 12%. After recognized retirement benefit right? Compensation for loss of office scheme approved on scheme. Uniform scheme. It should be uniform scheme. Everybody should get that same benefit. Same, I mean the entitlement should be similar. ඒක හදලා තියෙන්නේ දැන් අපිට නැත්තම් කියන්න පුළුවන් ඩිරෙක්ටර් කෙනෙකුට කියන්න පුළුවන් මම ආයෙත් එනවා මට ගන්න ඕන. ඔයා 10 million විතර ආයෙත්. tax එක උඩ 10 million tax 10 million එක tax බින්දුව වෙනවා. ඒක නවත්තන්න බෑ. CM එක affluent. Right? So we have to get an approval from the Commissioner General. We call VRS approval, voluntary retirement scheme approval. Under that approval, so that concession is available. Right. That's so. Then this table is designed for that one. Table 4, where the payment received by non-resident employee. Non-resident employee කෙනෙකුට නම් එයාට tax දෙකරුම් එක තමයි non-resident කෙනෙකුට tax relief එක නැහැ. Resident විතරයි relief වෙන්නේ. ඒක තමයි මේ table එක හදලා තියෙන්නේ ඒක consider කරලා. දැන් 100,000 එක නැහැ consider. So table number 5, monthly earning is less than 100,000 but annual earning is more than 1.2 million. එහෙම පුළුවන්. මාසෙට ලක්ෂ ඩොලර් අඩුයි. අපේ annually ගත්තාම ලක්ෂ ඩොලර් වැඩි වෙනවා. 1.2 million ඩොලර් වැඩි වෙනවා. වෙන පුළුවන්. මට 90,000 salary ඉන්නේ මම OT කරනවා එක මාසෙක අනිත් මාසෙ කරලා. නෑ එහෙම වෙන්න පුළුවන්. right මගේ අතරමැද වැඩි කරනවා. මම හොඳට වැඩ කරනවා කියනවා ඒක. So then annual table we can have that. So 1.2 million exit උනාට පස්සේ තමයි table එක apply වෙන්නේ. එතකන්ට apply වෙන්නේ. So table 6 where the employees where the tax. ඒ කියන්නේ employee අඩු කරන්නේ. employee අපේ tax එකක් කියවනවා. එහෙම කරනවා. ඔයා කියන මට සැලරි ඕනේ ලක්ෂ 5ක්. ලක්ෂ 5ක් වොන් මගේ අතට. ටැක්ස් ඔයා දෙනවා ටැක්ස් ඔයා වල දාලා කරනවා. එතකොට ටැක්ස් එකත් මගේ බෙනිෆිට් එක. employer paying my tax on me up there. ඒ කියන්නේ ඩිඩක්ට් කරලා ගෙවනවා කියන්නේ නෙමෙයි. මගේ tax exposure එක යාළුවා. So that is also a benefit. So this table actually designed in conjunction with that part. It goes with tax or tax table. Table 7 එක other than primary employment. ඒ කියන්නේ employment දෙකක් එකකට වඩා වැඩිපුර දෙනවා. එහෙම වෙන්න පුළුවන් employment. අන්න ඒ වගේ වෙලා තමයි table 7 එක. Right? So there are 7 tables. So once you apply this table, tax is paying monthly basis. The aggregate tax, monthly aggregate tax is equal to the annual tax rate. Right? Okay, sir. I'm cold at the CDB नहीं I'm doing the development back. Okay, sir. Understand? So then advance personal income tax. That's so what are the obligation of the tax the employer says apply the correct table and work out the liabilities and deduct tax based on that table and what the deducted tax should be remitted to the Commissioner General on or before the 15th of the next month. Mandatory. Yeah, when I told him, man, penalty down. And that was part of the other. I'm being out on other way on. And then he has given 15 days to into. Why? There are some sort of administrative. Yeah, payroll tax work out recruit documents they have to maintain. So they are going to compensate that. 15 days given to cover up the opportunity cost. Submit the employer's annual declaration. APIT declaration on or before 30th they will appear. Issuing the certificate we call T10 certificate. So the employee එක තමයි tax එක තමයි withholding tax certificate එක employment income. T10 certificate. And we call T10. Tax 10 form කියන එක. ඒ දවස්වල තිබිච්ච TA එක මේක අවුරුදු ගානක් කලින් අවුරුදු 20 කට විතර කලින් ඉන්ට්‍රොඩියුස් කරපු සාමාන්‍ය T10. Right, so 30th April within 30 days from the termination of the employee shutdown business from that date. Maintain the details of employees related pay. So then this is our part. So withholding tax section 84 subsection 1 and 84A 1A. So under that. This is on investment return, investment payment. Right? With effect from 1st January 2020, that is also a person shall deduct advance income. A person shall withhold tax at the rate provided in para 10 of the first schedule. First schedule says the tax rate. Where person pays a dividend, interest, discount, charges, natural resource payment, rent, royalty premium. Base amount has been from lottery rewards wedding or company. The payment or allocation has a source in Sri Lanka. That means that income should be generated from source in Sri Lanka. That's what we discussed under section 2. Non-resident person is liable for Sri Lanka income tax. There is a source in Sri Lanka. And then make it again after payment tax deduct source Lanka. It could be resident, non-resident who. The National Game and Jewelry Authority shall withhold tax at the rate 2.5% when there is a sale of gem at auction. So, so what is source in Sri Lanka? It says source in Sri Lanka. In respect of employment. To the extent derived in respect of employment in Sri Lanka, where payment is come. So that means employment is exercised in Sri Lanka. We call there is a source in Sri Lanka. Right? Second thing is paid by on behalf of the government. So where are the employment? Okay. So dividend paid by the resident government. That's called source in Sri Lanka. I discussed the interest charges, annuities or royalty, technical service or civil payment is paid by a resident person. The payment is made by the resident person, it shall be considered as a source in Sri Lanka. Other than as an expenditure of business carried out by a resident person who are government resident outside Sri Lanka. Right? Don't worry. We'll discuss under that. Non-resident. For the time being, I will explain that. So its first thing is says if the resident person make the payment in the form of what is interest, charges, natural resources, royalty or whatever things, it shall be considered as a source in Sri Lanka. But if the resident person make that payment on behalf of another person who is outside Sri Lanka, so that particular expenditure is that person. He is only doing what is supporting to make that payment. Paid by a non-resident person as an execution of the business carried on by a non-resident person through Sri Lanka permanent establishment. Permanent establishment means there is a fixed business location in Sri Lanka. PE. Permanent establishment. Paid by the person of Sri Lanka, including such payment made by an institution or behalf of the government of Sri Lanka. Winning from lottery betting, in that such case, the game of chance is happening in Sri Lanka. Right? Natural resource payment is the resources in Sri Lanka. So, make it Sri Lanka define that. What is Sri Lanka? Sri Lanka again. Again, Sri Lanka natural resource taken from land. Map land or sea, seabed. Move seama. Oh, it's territorial waters. Lanka territorial waters. Actually, Russia, US country the territorial waters. Right. So, rent. Create the use of the right to use of provision from the using of assets situated in Sri Lanka. Assets premium for general insurance, payment received from conductor relevant transportation business, payment received by a person who conduct a business of transmission messages, payment including service fee, attribute to service rendered provision services to Sri Lanka regarding place of payment, life insurance, that type of thing. So, gift and other extra payment to the extent that received in the business of investment conducted with domestic assets. So, that type of thing we consider as there is a source in Sri Lanka. Right? That means that income is generated in Sri Lanka. That income is generated from Sri Lanka. So, what is the withholding tax? This is the important part. This says. So, payment to non-resident person with federal land, fee, air transport to telecommunication service in terms of the section of extraordinary gas notification, 2%. That type of payment, that return tax rate is 2%. Interest or discount paid by a person, 5%. Interest or discount, 5%. Okay, right now it is 10%. Effective from 1/4/2025 is 10%. Up a year of consumer area, 5%. Then payment made to a resident person where the aggregate payment is exceed 100,000 per month. The rent payment, if the aggregate payment is more than 100,000, withholding tax rate is 10%. So that's what you asked that last day. What is the rate? This depends on the category. If it is rent, then interest 5. First one is what is that? Sea transport and all those things 2% conducted by non-resident. So it says what is rent? Payment of the use of land of the body movable of any kind. Hiring service is not subject to AIT. Why it is not coming under the rent? Should be right to use asset. Rent payment to non-resident charges. Rent payment to non-resident charges, natural resource payment, royalty, premium of pays, amount as winning from lottery exceeding 500,000. because up to 500,000 is exempt. Betting or gambling, payment or allocation has source in Sri Lanka, non-resident, rate is 14%. That's all. You can see now. Right use asset, it's now 10%. Intangible asset, just like royalty category, 14%. The same thing, right? Intangible assets, intellectual property and intangible assets that categorized under the royalty. It goes to 14%. Where in the other case, rent is tax, its own tax rate is 10%. Dividend 15%. Its own tax rate is 15%. Sale price payable to a seller of any gem sold at auction conducted by the National Gem and Jewelry 2.5. Its own tax rate is 2.5. They don't speak. I am very happy. Right? So you can see now without tax rate. So natural, sorry, that's it's a non-resident person conduct a business in Sri Lanka, just like land, sea, transportation business. One example is shipping line. Shipping line is Lanka, everything Lanka. Yeah, Lanka embark goods or passengers and going outside. It shall be considered. The payment is done by from Sri Lanka for that. So take a source Lanka again. Given about 2% it's a conduct by non-resident person. Resident person can be non-resident. Nah, don't pay. May I took a slab there, make with like 100,000. Pay 100,000 in the rent income with 1.2 million tax in there. If I cap back in that. Yeah, many income at the tax and full. I have 100,000 rent with a million of rent with a Madina, tax in there. Tax with all another refund there. Anuda than to see the Hagalan, Namadahagani, Master Captain. So, Mandolada here. Namadahagani, Master Captain. Again. That are more than tax. Okay. Etokota tax and Master. Here, income annual income less than 1.2 million. 1.2 million after tax tax the refund again. The refund set up if it is more than 100,000, deduct 10% on the gross payment. Gross payment with that means you're going to deduct any expenditure. What is consultant? So this is what is investment return. Consultant fee is not coming as investment return. It's all investment return. And that's all. Section 83, 84, it's coming as section 85. See, now there are different tax rates, so that need to be applied and work out the tax, deduct tax at the source. Right. So, rent withheld from investment return under that rent. It says fee paid for local transportation service. As this is not recognized under the service fee payment, therefore no subject. No, it's not subject to 5% withhold tax. That is transportation services. Transportation service. Right. It's not subject to withhold. Just like highway. Payment for renting vehicle. So whether the ability to control the assets is retained with the user, it shall be considered as rent. So vehicle control user it is considered as rent. Otherwise it is hire. අර මං කලින් කිව්වා වගේ තමයි. අපි යන අනුරාධපුර යන්න ගිහින් දවස් පහක් අපි ගන්න වාහනයක් කුඩියට. ඒතර වාහනේ දෙනෙක් නැගෙන ඔයා පෙට්‍රල් ගහගන්න ඔයා ඩ්‍රයිවර් කෙනෙකුත් හොයාගන්න ඔයාම ගිහින් වාහනේ මොනවාද වුණොත් එහෙනම් ඔයාම තමයි ඔය කියන්නේ. So now we have the control of the assets. අපි අනුරාධපුරයට යන්න පුළුවන් අපිට ඕන දෙයක් යන්න. අපි ගන්නවා වෙහිකල් එකක් අනුරාධපුර යන්න කාගෙන් හරි යා කියනවා යා ඩ්‍රයිවරුත් දෙනවා පෙට්‍රෝල් දෙනවා යා කියනවා ගාණ දෙනවා මට මෙතන කොහොමද. ඒතර අපි අනුරාධපුර යන්න. So that is transport service. It's not rent. The thing is rent. Right? So for this thing, we have to check factors that may be considered in determining the assets on hire or renting, etc. Valid rent agreement as the terms we have prepared. Agreement whether control of the asset is with the user or not. Right? Time period and possibility of reclaiming the asset by the owner. Use identification, purpose of the use of the assets. If the aggregate payment is exceeding 100,000 per month, return shall be deducted on entire amount. That's all. If the payment is exactly 100,000 per month, such payment is not liable for withholding. That's a guideline given by the Commission General for this. So withholding from investment return is also continued rental payment under the finance lease. Finance lease we have the right to use of asset in case of the finance lease. That is considered as not as a rent. This shall not be considered as rent and not liable for its own. Finance lease installment say it is not coming under the rent. A rental payment under an operating lease. This shall be considered as rent. The operating lease considered as rent for taxes. Right? So if the monthly amount payment is more than 100,000, tax need to be deducted 10%. Rental payment on co-owners. Co-owners means asset then we take owner. Right? Where an asset is jointly owned and entered into a rent agreement jointly with tenants. Rent amount relevant to each co-owner shall be considered separately for withholding purpose. Accordingly, withholding shall be applicable for each owner if the respective portion of the rent payment is exceed 100,000. Right? ඒ කියන්නේ අපි හිතමු බිල්ඩින් එකක් හදනවා ඔයාගේ හස්බන්ඩ් එක හදනවා නැත්නම් වයිෆ් එක හදනවා. එයා දෙන්නට හොඳයි. අපි දෙන්නම බෙදාගමු කියලා දෙන්නටම අවශ්‍යක වෙලා දෙන්නම ඇග්‍රීමන්ට් එකක් දානවා. ඒක ඇග්‍රීමන්ට් එක දානකොට සෙන්ට් ඇග්‍රීමන්ට් දානකොට දෙන්නම අස්සම් කරනවා. ප්‍රොපර්ටි එක ආයෙත් දෙන්නෙක්. co-owners. So එක්කෙනෙකුට හම්බවෙන ගාන ලක්ෂයට වැඩි වුණොත් විතරයි විතරෙන් දැන්. දෙන්නගේ ගාන එකතු කරලා නෙමෙයි. පේමන්ට් එක ගන්න පුළුවන්. ඒක පේමන්ට් එක විතර පේ කරන කෙනාට රෙන්ට් එක එකයි. හැබැයි ඕන කෙනෙක් ගන්නවා. එක්කෙනෙකුගේ පෝෂන් එක 100,000 වැඩි වුණොත් තමයි විතරෙන් දැක්කේ. That's the meaning. To non-resident, irrespective of the amount paid shall be considered as rent and liable for its own tax and overhead. Non-resident 100,000 in there. They are tax relief value. Irrespective of the amount, tax should be deducted at 14% in case of non-resident. Unless there is a double tax equivalent. But in this case, not subject to AIT. Payment to the government is shall not be considered as a payment to person, right? Individual not doing business, a payment account in a restoring. ඒ කියන්නේ මම ගෙදරක ඉන්නවා කුලියට මම ගෙවනවා rent එක installment එකක් ගන්න. හැබැයි if I am doing say business in that particular building, if I am making the payment, I am supposed to deduct it. Right? Pays interest on ordinary loan. I'm interest given. The interest subject to payment with on that. මගේ loan එකකට මම ගෙවනවා. එතකොට යල් මම business එකක් කරන්නේ මම loan එකකට ගෙවනවා. Individual loan. That's what it says. Ordinary loan. එතකොටත් අපි return එකක් කරන්නේ. Person pays interest on treasury bill or bonds. Treasury bill interest on treasury bill and treasury bonds is also no withholding. If the person makes the payment to an exempt person, income is exempt, it's not supposed to deduct withholding tax. Right? Anna value 500. With the service fee payment. Section 85 among right? So let's make up the discuss, but this is on service fee payment. It's only tax. Right? This say if the person make a service payment, what type of service payment? Only these type of service payment. If the monthly payment is more than 100,000, he is supposed to deduct 5% withholding tax. That is withholding tax on service related payments. It say with effect from 1st January 2023, a person shall withhold tax at the rate of 5% of the payment. Where such person pays a service fee with the source in Sri Lanka to a resident individual. Person make the payment to a resident individual. Individuals not with the payment. So company ka payment take right? So just like for teaching, lecturing, examining, invigilating, or supervising an examination. So in that services, lecturing being the subject 5,000. 5,000 I don't know. So 5,000 I don't know. So lecturer taxing and tax given. Teaching, lecturing, examining, examination, that type of services. As a commission of brokerage to a resident insurance, sale or canvassing agent. Oh, this type of services provided by such individual in the capacity of independent service provider, such as doctor, engineer, accountant, lawyer, software developer, researcher, academic, or any individual service provider as may be prescribed by regulation. So up to now they have not issued this regulation. Therefore, service fee payment coming under these categories only subject to withholding tax if the payment is more than 100,000 per month. Right? Right. Right. However, this subsection shall not apply to a service fee payment which does not exceed 100,000 per month. Right. In case of the payment, service fee payment to the non-resident, there is no cap. Whatever payment is subject to the withholding tax at 14%. 14%. Right? Or it is defined the double tax evidence agreement. Clear? That is service related payment. Okay? Okay. Clear? Answer the answer. So, may I go to the toilet? So it's like okay, now 40 Teacher, may I go to the toilet, please? Again, the man 45 pahe pandi, high pandi, the pala mandu banana. You are going to bear. Ekadasa Mava them take a part. Economic enough. Teacher. May I muggy Hapu Gallagala, Makana did. Cam went to the Hapu Gallagala, then Makana. And then go on again. They got him on I am not a Galle, Pilame, Banana, there are minutes, there are the garden. Lamatari carry. That's very interesting. Yes. 84. Sorry. So just like say in the garment industry, so other companies they are giving, I mean they are giving the staff transport facility. ඒක තමයි එතන address එක. ඒක තමයි main issue එක. Staff transport facility. So in such case, vehicle owner, he has a contract with the company. What he is doing, he coming, I mean either he drive or he put a driver and he pump petrol or diesel and he maintain the vehicle. He just only doing what is that? Transport service. That's what says transport service. It's not subject to it. Because that control of the asset is not with the user. Factory के company के आटे ये वाहन है या उधर यहाँ पे contract के ना वहाँ उधर कितना दान है उधर क्या नहीं चल ये बस यार उन्होंने देखा क्या तो वहाँ एक वाहन है था आकलन है था ये वाला क्या था एक क्या ट्रिप पैक करना पूरा कर दे तो ये that control of the asset is not with the user. Therefore it is coming another higher. Itu lagi yang kita lakukan. Mereka harus kira, mereka kira apa? That's all. Jika kita main lagi kan question yang akan ini. Kalau kita tahu mereka macam mana ni, udah hamil dia dulu sahaja. Ada ni, kalau dia cakap kalau main lagi main, nah ini pasti yang itu mati tu, anu tu game main itu. Jadi lagi sering kita main ni, kita lagi kita tak kira ni, tamar yang panah ber, ini mereka yang muni. Ada kan no? Pilar knowledge देना है पिना करने में देने आता है नहीं क्या ना दाम पाव लेने में पिना तो उदाहरण करना है भाई हम क्या किया है सियाल ला को काम में सीधे हम उदाहरण में करते right right so then the 5% withhold tax application. So this type of thing, teaching, lecturing, examining, invigilator, supervisor and examination payment. If the payment is more than 100,000 per month, 5%. Commission no brokerage to resident insurance. That insurance commission. Open panel just like no. This happens just like AIA. That I'm training for insurance. Egolang in agent line, insurance policy, insurance at the mother. Egolang, they will not want to pay they are employee in the main company. They are employee in the main. How many commission? They are interesting. Petrol gun, bicycle, and both are deal. Up or Gappe, the long end of the day after. So he is working as an agent of the company. So that's what the companies pay commission to them. That's an insurance agent. Insurance employees la wage me kada kan egolan munase AIA ka mana insurance company egolan agent tab ekak dila dinnawa ne laksana ඇද වෙනවා AIA කියලා ගහගෙන ඉන්න ඔක්කොම තියෙනවා හැබැයි ඒගොල්ලෝ employees නෙමෙයි they are agent of the company ඒගොල්ලන් how many commission ඒගොල්ලන් number of policy ඒගොල්ලෝ ගන්න තමයි ඒගොල්ලන් income කියන්නේ monthly ගන්න වැඩේන ඒගොල්ලන් income එක තියෙනවා right service provider මොකද මම මතකයි මේ මම කැම්පස් එකේ යන කාලේ මගේ යාළුවෙකුට එදාසල සෙලින්ගෝ ඉන්ෂුරන්ස් එකේ බ්‍රාන්ච් ස්ථාපනය යනකොට බ්‍රාන්ච් එකක ඉන්ෂුරන්ස් ඒජන්ට් ලාගෙන එයාම ඉන්ටර්විව් එකක් ගියේ මාත් එක්කන් ගියේ මම ඉතින් නිකන් ගියා ඩෙනිමක් කරනවා අතර කොට දෙයක් දාගෙන මං ගියේ මම ඉන්ටර්විව් එකට අලුතෙන් ලස්සන නැගගෙන නිකන් ගියා ගියා තාම ඕගාල ගන්නවා අර එතන ඉතින් ඉන්ටෝ කොටිය මනුස්සයා මාව අදලා මට ඒ මනුස්සගේ ටයි එක දාලා ඔයත් මම මට බෑ මම මාසේ කැම්පස් යන්නේ කැම්පස් එකේ ඉන්න ගමන් ඔයාලට මේක කරන්න පුළුවන් so then මගේ එක ගිය කාර මොකද සිලෙක්ට් වුණා ඉතින් මොකද ඒගොල්ලෝ එදාස්ල ගත්තා now is the area මනේ මගේ ඉන්ෂුරන්ස් එක කරන්නේ තෝ ඌ ගමන් ඌ මට කරා because of this right now he is not doing this individual insurance he is doing big insurance just like say සත්තු 10 විතර building insurance අන්න ඒ වගේ විතරයි මම handle කරන්නේ. So it's not a tax දෙනවා. මම දන්නවා tax නැතිද. So insurance agent. So this type of service pay. So remember this payment construction services, janitorial services, security services, catering, management services, consultancy services. Eva given not subject to withholding because it is not prescribed. මෙන්න මේ ටික විතරයි තියෙන්නේ තාම law එකේ. Doctor charges, engineer, accountant, lawyer, software developer, researcher, academic or individual. මෙන්න මේ කියන්න නැහැ. Not prescribed by the law. තාම නැහැ. Previously we had a gas notification. Some said that we gas notification. What are the prescribed services? ඒකයි issue කරලා නැහැ තාම. ඒසයි ඒක කවෙන්නේ. Pays the service fee payment insurance premium is sourced in Sri Lanka too. Or service fee or insurance payment to non-resident is 14%. Right? If it is not doing business, again, it's not tax applicable. Right? So I'm going to say we are a company. We need lawyer service. Right? So after payment account, we are running a business. When we are making the service payment, we have to do. Mama නඩුව දාගෙන තියෙනවා මම ලෝය කෙනෙක් අල්ල ගන්නවා. මම ගෙවනකොට ඒකට ඉතනක් මට අඩු ගන්න බෑ. Right. This thing will start, right? So what is the obligation? Sorry, this is final restoring. When now we are the final restoring කතා. This says amount made as winning from lottery, rewards, betting or gambling that lakhs of pound or wedding or the return as need to be done at 14%. It is final return. Second thing is dividend paid by a company. So dividend supposed to that's declaring company supposed to deduct restoring at or the AIT at 15%. It is final return. Payment made to non-resident person. Payment made to non-resident person. It is also final restoring tax. Provided that he doesn't have a permanent residence in Sri Lanka. I am non-resident of the Dati. While like Hamadano Miyagi, the other dividend out power. I the color, like a final color. So rapid party. Some part. Service fee payment is local type of non-resident 14. So if we are deducting from the gross amount 14%. Gross amount එක ඒ ෆයිනල් කරලා දෙන්න. අපි ලංකාවේ ගානේ නරසිරන් මේ just assume that he is not in Sri Lanka. නරසිරන් කියන්නේ මේකෙන්. ඒතර ඒ මොනසාර ගෙවුවට පස්සේ ආයි මොනසාර අල්ලන්න බෑ අපි. සැට් ගෙවන්න කියන්නේ. 14ක් ගත්තට පස්සේ ඒ දුටිය හදාගන්න. So we have 14. But if it's a permanent establishment, it is not final. Permanent establishment that non-resident person के में लंका location में देना तो यहाँ पर अलग अलग पुलान tax. I mean, we can ascertain the correct tax liability. Otherwise, once we are making the payment, we have to deduct 14%. Finish. And he has no any more tax liability in Sri Lanka. That's all. Now you know that section 2 we discussed. Person who receives final return pay. These are the final return. Section 88 discusses the final return. These things are final return. Right? You can see now. Now you can understand what does section 2 says. If somebody is having taxable income, yes, he has to pay tax in Sri Lanka. Or somebody receives final return payment. They are already paid tax now. They are also liable for Sri Lanka tax. But the moment with tax, I give tax. If I am having only dividend income, I am liable for dividend tax for the tax in Sri Lanka. The part of my source of income, right? Investment income. I am liable, but the company deduct at 14% or 15%. That's my tax liability. I am liable for Sri Lanka tax. The payment mode is by way of withholding. I have already paid tax. Finish. Then liable කරේ නැත්තම් මට ඒක tax එක අඩු කරන්න බෑ. ඒකයි exempt වුණාද withholding tax එන්නේ නැහැ. That payment to the person who is exempt. No withholding tax application. Right? Right. So what are the application of the withholding agent? The same thing what we have discussed on the APIT. So he has to apply the correct tax rate and deduct that. Right? Deduct the amount need to be debited to the commercial general account. One of you will put in the next one. So submit the withholding tax return, he had to return and issue withholding tax certificate. and maintain details. That is the responsibility of the withholding agent. Right? Clear? You'll have a minute. I have uploaded one reading material. But what? There are few reading materials. Oh, em bán đã. Này mà ini mana? Apa dia bisa tu duga sama. Dakar pada ini. ඔයා මට කොල්ලන් දාලා එනවා. ඔයා කොළඹ යන වෙලාවක් යනවා. ඔයා කොළඹ යනවනේ සමහරවිට. ටෙස්ට් එක. ඔව්. ඒ ටික තරක්. ඔයාලා එතන ඉන්ෆෝන් එක තමයි payment Right. So second, we'll look into that but way of mode of payment or the payment of taxes, discharge of tax liability by way of installment. The second mode of payment is by way of installment. Installment tax payment. So again, discussing when we work out the tax liability, how to discharge the tax liability and what the tax credit what we can claim against our tax liability. Right. So the payment way is installment. That means person who has tax liability, say you know that some are final withholding, some are not final withholding. So then there may be remaining tax liability discharge. Right. So that need to be discharged by way of installment. Right, it goes as installment. So therefore, our tax liability need to be discharged by way of installment if there is additional tax, which is in excess of the withholding, which is not final. In case if I am having a final withholding, so I don't have any installment tax liability. So then and there we have that a withholding agent deduct tax and remit, my tax liability is fully settled. But in case of the non-final withholding and all, it's not subject to any withholding. So then there may be tax liability. Especially you can see in the business income, that could be tax liability which is not covered by withholding. Right? So then it shall be discharged by way of installment pay. So it says installment pay. So then taxpayer has to make his tax liability installment. Right? So it says, as per the law, it says, it says, section 9 says, a person who is an installment payer, tax law recognizes who is an installment payer, right? Installment payer shall pay tax by quarterly installment. Tax need to be discharged by quarterly installment. That is who installment taxpayer. This tax liability need to be discharged by quarterly installment. Quarter means how many months? 3 months. For a year, 4 quarters. Then there may be 4 installment payments for a particular taxable year, right? Year of husband. So it's a quarterly installment if he derives or expects to derive taxable income during a year of husband from a business, investment, or other income. Right? For an employment where the employee is not required to withhold tax. Right? However, gains derived or expected to be derived from the realization of an investment asset during a year of husband shall not be considered for the purpose of quarterly installment. That has direct connection with the investment income. Say, so business, investment, or other sources. Somebody having, or his employment income is not subject to API. He has to make an installment tax payment. So then, therefore, part installment tax payment is required. However, if there is gains from the realization of investment assets, we call that capital gain. That cannot be discharged by way of withholding. And it is not considered for when we work out installment tax liability. Right? An installment payer shall pay installment of tax for the year of husband on or before the 15th day On the before the 15th day, respectively, August, November, February in the year of assessment, and the 15th day of May of the next succeeding year of assessment. So installment tax payment coming on 15th August, 15th November, 15th February of the same year of assessment. And the fourth installment fall on 15th May of the next year of assessment. Right? Subsidy after the year of assessment, because year of assessment is end with 30th, 31st March, first April to 31st March. The fourth installment falls on 15th May. That's our coming. This 18th, 15th May, fourth installment is yours. That for the year of assessment, 25 years, 24. Right? So installment tax payable, installment of tax payable by an installment payer for a year of assessment shall be calculated according to the formula. There is a formula given in the Act. It says we have to use that formula and work out our installment tax payable. So A minus C divided by B. What is A? A is the current estimated tax payable. It is estimated tax payable. Because installment tax payment, how is coming? Say 24-25. First installment due by 15th August 2024. Second installment due by 15th November 2024. Third installment due by 15th February 2025. So that you can see that all those installments coming before the end of the year of assessment. We should know what the exact tax liability for the year of assessment. So there is a tax says you don't know your actual tax liability. You go with the estimated tax payable for the year. So then we have to make an estimate for the whole year. Based on that, we can discharge our tax liability. That is the prevailing provision. It will be taken out with that amendment, right? So A is the current estimated tax payable by the installment payable for the year. B is the number of installment remaining for the year of assessment, including the current installment. C is the sum of any tax paid during the year of assessment, but prior to the due date of the payment of the installment. That means actual tax payment, if any, before the due date of the installment payment. Two, the tax withheld during the year, not the final withholding amount. Final withholding we cannot deduct. Right? Other than final withholding we can deduct, but prior to the due date of the payment of the installment. If there is withholding tax or the advance income tax deducted, if it is not final withholding, we can deduct that tax. So that's what I mentioned, it is way of payment of taxes. Say I am getting rent income. My tenant, when they are making the payment, they are deducting withholding tax. So I can deduct that one. Why? It is part of my tax liability. He has already paid some amount. That is seen, but I have already paid that. Consider I have already paid that. So therefore that I can deduct that. So any withholding tax up to the date of due date of the tax payment, if any, I can deduct that tax. So that is part of C. That so I put it in very simple way. This C is tax credit available to me. And it could be installment payment or withholding payment. That I can deduct. So that is the way to work out installment tax payment. So he said every person who is an installment payer. You know who is an installment payer? Person who is supposed to pay his income tax liability by way of quarterly installment. Installment payer for year of assessment shall file with the Commissioner General by the date for payment of the first tax installment and estimate of tax payable for the year. So installment tax payers shall make a submission to the filer statement of estimated tax payable. Right? We got statement of estimated tax payable. Statement of estimated tax payable. Right? In the estimate, person's taxable income for the year of assessment for each employment, business and investment and other sources. The person's taxable income for the year of assessment and the tax payable with respect to that income. In estimating tax payable for a year of assessment, a person may take into account the foreign tax rate to be claimed. However, in doing so, a person may take account of foreign income tax only if the person has paid the tax or the person reasonably estimate that the tax will be paid during the year. An installment pay estimate shall remain imposed for the whole year of assessment unless the person files a revised estimate with the Commissioner General. So then, how it should be done? If I am an installment taxpayer, I have to make an estimated tax payable for the whole year. Right? Based on that, I should work out the statement of estimated tax payable for the year, and it shall be submitted by the on or before the due date of the first installment payment. That's on or before. The on or before. Right? That means by 15 August of the year, I have to make an or submission which is called statement of estimated tax payable. And for the whole year. Now I make an estimate for the year. You know that because especially in the business company and all those things, we do our forecast, budget, and everything is there. So that is very in line with the practical situation also. So then I can work out an estimated tax payable for the year. Based on that thing, I can get the statement of estimated tax payable. As per the estimate, I have to discharge my tax liability by 4 installments. Right? Right? Is there any change? So say I make an estimate for the year whole year, say 50 million tax liability by the due date of the first installment tax payment. But subsequently I got to know that there won't be such tax liability, there will be revision. So I can do a revision. Revised estimate can be done. That's not the meaning. If I not make any revision, the whole year, the first is or the original estimate I did is valid. Based on that, I have to pay. Right? If there is a revision, I can submit a revised estimate. Revised estimate. That is possible. Say it shall be done on or before the due date of the next installment payment. Say first installment I made that 15th August based on the estimate and submit the estimate as well. I got to know that by the second installment date, there should be a revision. So I can make a revision based on that thing, I can pay that payment. Right? That is possible. As to the law, it is allowed. Taxpayer can make a revision. With that, but second installment, third installment, even fourth installment, he can make a revision. Right? Right. That is the by way of installment. Right now, the installment taxpayer has to make an estimate for the whole year and need to submit statement of estimated tax payable for the year. It is due by the first installment due date, and based on the estimate what he did, he has to discharge his tax liability. Right? Once he make an estimate, it is prepared for the whole year. Then revision is also possible. He can make a revision. And it's very practical. He can do that. Right. So the third mode of payment, assessment based tax. Right. So right. So in Sri Lanka, there are 4 types of assessments. We'll discuss later. For the time being, there are 4 types of assessment. First thing which goes as self-assessment. That's what this payment recognized as self-assessment tax payment. You could see here. Known as self-assessment tax payment. SAP. Self-assessment tax payment. Right? So there are 4 types of assessment. First thing called self-assessment. That is the assessment made by the taxpayer. He can make a self-assessment. There are 2 types of assessment we recognize after the law. First thing is on income tax liability on the taxable income. Second thing is on capital gain tax. That is also goes as assessment based tax, but it is taxpayer assessment. It is goes as self-assessment. So that is the first assessment. It is from taxpayer side. So now taxpayer work out his tax liability for the whole year, and he has to make an assessment. This goes as self-assessment. We call return of income. You may heard. It need to be submitted by on or before 30th November. That is goes as self-assessment. We have to submit to tax authority and to the Commissioner General. So once we make the submission, the one officer recognized as assistant commissioner, AC, assistant commissioner, he can review the assessment done by the taxpayer. Is there any revision? Right? He can make amended or additional assessment. Amended or additional. That is based on the taxpayer's assessment and subsequently reviewed by the assistant commissioner or the tax authority. Right? Then I am making a declaration, right? I'm making my return. Say I am telling that okay, as per my details, my total income is say 50 million, and on that tax liability I have discharged. Assistant commissioner found that the way I am working on the business income, allowable, that there are something wrong. We have incorrectly worked out our computation. Exam make it in a computation like our so, tax. So if I did a wrong working application of the law and all those things, something wrong, so then he can review and he can amend. He can accept the taxpayers' income and all those things, but there should be an amendment. That can be done as an amendment. Or assistant commissioner with the information available with him, he can recognize additionally. Say I'm telling okay, I don't have any other income, but they have found that some income, my income, undeclared income, what is right? It is coming as an additional income. Say I'm telling okay, I have only business income. Right, business income. But me additional income I'm telling okay, I have only business income. So but I am getting rent income. Person who makes that rent paper, he is deducting withholding. 10% deduct. And end of the year, he is making a annual statement. 30th, you have a tax agent responsibility annual statement and submit. In this statement, he has to declare all the details to whom those rent has been paid. What the tax amount deducted, what the withholding certificate, and everything he has to declare. Tax authority system may fix now. There is another person who is getting rent income. So whether this person has a tax file, yes, that tax file number needs to be declared. So whether under that tax file he has declared this rent income. He can declare. So then he found that with the available information, I have another source of income that is coming as investment income. So I have to pay tax. That is coming as additional. In addition to what the declared tax, he can count another tax and he can charge it. That goes as additional law amended as one additional law amended. Right? Yeah, even it's liable. I'm liable. So in my side, income category whose tax liability? Income earning tax liability tax default tax liability that is the mode of payment. That's not I know that is a way of discharging my tax liability. Still that liability is with me. I can't say. Right? So say that 30th November I have to make my self-assessment. If I couldn't make that thing, I didn't submit my tax return or self-assessment. So then assistant commissioner can issue an assessment to collect tax with the available of his judgment. That assessment recognized as default assessment. If there is no taxpayers or the assessment is there, assistant commissioner can issue an assessment which goes as default assessment. Right? In the absence of taxpayers assessment, tax officer or the assistant commissioner can issue an assessment which goes as default assessment. That's the second category of assessment. First category is self-assessment, second one default assessment. Right? They can one tax return but reason is that why that provision is there. Government revenue cannot be in. Government revenue in any case, nobody can stop. Shall be collected. So how can assistant commissioner issue an default assessment? He can review previous record. Based on that, he can make a judgment. Okay, if this guy has done a business previously and he has paid tax so much, at least he has to pay tax in this year so much. He can make a default assessment. And in the absence of self-assessment, tax officer or the assistant commissioner can issue an assessment which goes as default assessment. That means the default assessment comes after the 30th November. Right. Till 30th November, we can make our self-assessment. If that self-assessment not there, he can issue a default assessment. So after the due date of the assessment, he can issue a default assessment. In case of the capital gain, also they can issue a default assessment. Right? But before the due date of the taxpayer's assessment, even before the due date of the taxpayer's assessment, that is before 30th November, assistant commissioner can issue an assessment provision in the law. Assistant commissioner can issue an assessment to collect tax that goes as advance assessment. That is before the due date of the taxpayer's assessment. So why it is there? As I mentioned, nobody can stop the getting the government revenue. Assistant commissioner, the commissioner general feel that somebody is not paying tax and say in case of the individual they are going to migrate. Then there should be a no provision to collect that tax. He can issue an advance assessment and collect tax because year of assessment is ending with 31st March. Tax return need to be submitted by 30th November. There is 8-month period to submit the return. Right? Say somebody is going outside Sri Lanka. Say then we cannot collect that balance tax. There is no provision in the law. Therefore, there's a chance to assistant commissioner issue. There's option to assistant commissioner issue advance assessment and collect tax. So that's 4 types of assessment. Right? So under the self-assessment, there are 2 assessments, that is taxpayers assessment. First thing is return of income. Second thing is capital gain tax. That is also goes as taxpayers assessment, self-assessment. Right? So that is the third way of paying tax. So we are discussing this under the administrative provision again. Once we discuss the after the computation and everything, because so what I want to discuss here the payment mode, and especially the focus is withholding tax here. But I cover that the payment of other tax mode as. Right? Clear? Any question? Yeah. I mean, addition. So that's the second thing I mentioned. As once the taxpayer make an assessment, this assessment, there any dispute, deviation from the tax authority stance, they can issue an advance. So additional law, it maintenance. That's the last one. And so then, I mean, so if somebody is failed to make the payment as per this estimate or as per the assessment, there will be penalty and interest. This law recognizes interest as. So penalty is 10% in case of the tax assessment and other assessment 20% on the total tax due. Interest is 1.5% per month. No difference. So that could be the penal provision if somebody is not complying with those payments. Right? So commercial journal can collect tax either from income or all the withholding agent. Because he has done a report. Anit ප්‍රශ්නේ මොකක්ද නේ යා විතර අලු කරේ නැතෝ. යා විතර අලු කරේ නැහැ. කතා කරන්න බෑ. තුලා නෙමෙයි නේද නේද මම කැවසන දාම් පාන්දලක නැගිටෝලා යන්නේ. දාම් පාන්දලේ දේවනම් දෙනවා වේවලෙන් ඉන්න ගන්නවා මම හරිතර. ඔව් කවියන් දෙපොළොදින් පද හතරට හතරක් ගන්න. මෙයා දැන් දෙක මෙයා. දෙතේ දෙනවා හගුවා නම් භාගයක් වුණා ගාන දෙකක් තමයි. සමහර තාවලි නෑ ඒ ආගේ ළමයිනුත් ඉන්නා චූරියයි ඒත් කියනවා. ඔයා මට ගැහුවා මෙන්න මේ පාර්ට් මම එක කරපුණා කියන්ද මම එක දාතාවක් මට මතකයි. සෞදද? Right. Yes. So what is the issue if somebody failed to deduct withholding tax for the advance income tax? First thing, as I told one thing, that is they can, Commissioner General can initiate recovery of tax and including he has to pay a penalty and whatever thing, all those subject. Other, Anisema. Yeah, very good. Under the business income, section 10, subsection 2, it is if any payment required to deduct withholding tax until the such tax deduction and regulatory Commissioner General, that particular expenditure is a disallowable expenditure for computation of taxable income from business. Right? They cannot be done. යාගේ ඒකාඩු කරන්න බෑ යානිත් එකේ ටැක්ස් එක ගෙවන්නත් බෑ. right අපි හිතමු දැන් මේ ආවුද්ද අපි අනුගමනය කරනවා ඊට පස්සේ අපි පස්සේ අඩු කරලා ගන්න පුළුවන්. අඩු කරලා ගන්න පුළුවන් ප්‍රශ්න නැහැ but expenditure එක දක්වන්න බැරි වෙනවා ඒ ආවුද්ද කියලා හරි. පිටලා shall be deducted පදේ කිය incurred. shall be deducted in පදේ production of income during the incurred year එක තමයි ගන්න. දැන් අඩු කරලා පාපු වගේ වට ගන්න. Karnataka return, we have to make an amendment to the paper. That's the possible option. Right? Any question? Nahi. But I'll take that. Oh. And then අපි දැන් අපි නෝන අපේ tax liability එක ලක්ෂයයි. Department එකෙන් කියනවා tax commission එකකින් assessment and it is okay 150,000. So what is that actually? Expenditure is that. අපිට අපි ගන්න පුළුවන් කියලා නේ යන්නේ. So section 10 එකේම අපි කිව්වා income tax under this act cannot be is a deductible expense. Section 10 එකේ කිව්වා. Penalty not possible. Why? Breach of law. Right? Expenditure tax so this year say so may have the election it's not possible to do. That is the what is it? Compliance requirement. Compliance is not tax paying. I tax pay you. Not mistake you are coming. Any question more? Right. So with that, so investment income is fully covered. Okay. If you have any question, you can ask. So then, income, we discussed business income fully and investment income fully. Right. Next day, application है करना देखा मजा आता है किंगरा कर investment income बनाया right. So in the So I have uploaded some details. So API guideline I have uploaded, that is who shall be treated as employee and all those things, application of this thing, what we have discussed. With additional reading material, it's not other than the employer side, I cannot take other parts because it is corporate tax calculation. What are the responsibilities? And explanatory notes, this was they are included in the tutorial as well. So service payment, 100,000 comes, whether it is rent and all those things, that is there. Same thing is there in the tutorial as well. So this is the legal document. So you can read that as well. But we have discussed same thing. There, we have discussed that. I covered. Withholding tax exemption amount, we have discussed. The same exemption. And this one I didn't discuss in detail. Well, there is another gazette on outward remittance. That is actually applicable for payment to non-resident. So I told you the payment to non-resident is substitution tax at 14%. Right? So this gazette notification we are discussing in detail when we are discussing the taxation of non-resident. But that circular is, this gazette notification is applicable because it is coming under the withholding. I touch little bit on the payment to non-resident. This applicable, that's what I have uploaded, right? So we are discussing the detail when we are discussing the non-resident tax liability. So payment of tax payment, the mode of payment, it says, so this is applicable to income tax payment. So it says that is installment tax payment, so and including what's the withholding tax, income tax payment. It says income tax payment shall be made by depositing cash. By depositing any depositing pay orders or bank draft. Pay orders or bank draft. By use of online tax payment platform. So now income tax can be paid by use of this can be discharged by using only this mode. Whether missing එක මොකක්ද? Cash payment තියෙනවා, pay orders තියෙනවා, bank draft තියෙනවා, online transfer තියෙනවා. Yeah, that means indirectly says now we cannot pay income tax using check. It should be cash, pay order, bank draft, online transfer. Because it's referred to the section 145 of the 11. So, because 11 law says Commissioner General can define the way of specify the way of paying. A section එක අනිත් අනිත් income tax කිව්වම API withholding tax self-assessment is a payment. No assessment based payment. It can be made by either cash payment, pay order, bank draft, online transfer. I check payment දාන්න තියයි. ඉස්සර check payment තිබුණා. Realization if there no, there are so many options, but once you the cash payment and the online payment, then that money goes to the commissioner account. So pay orders pay order bank draft technical liability වැඩි. account එකේ සල්ලි තියෙන්න ඕනේ pay order එකේ bank draft එකක්. That means already reserved to the department. Pay order එකක් අපි කියන්නේ what is this bankers check check එකක් කොනේ pay order එක. bank paying but the issuing part is bank. Right. So this thing, these things again we are discussing on the administrative provision, but Ian by Boyer my can you Evander Panaka. And the Kaviati and other income Kakarati. Heaven to the seven days. Other right. So there's no question. We can wind up today's class almost 12. So actually, my planning is thing again give the outlook to the actually cover other sources and taxable income. Right. Long date of income tax